Okay, the utility worksheet is going to help us understand some of the concepts of investing that have to deal with the benefit a person receives when they purchase a certain kind of investment. So let's let's think about a risky asset, right? So I'm going to change some of these numbers. So we have a risky investment. Let's say that the rate of return on this investment is 12%. And, whoops, I'm sorry, did it backwards. This is 12%. And the standard deviation, let's say that it's 15%. And our investor has a risk aversion of, a coefficient of risk aversion of, let's make it 2.75. So what we would know from this then, what this calculation tells us is for this particular asset, I would have a utility of 0.089. And again, remember, this is just a measurement of the benefit that I expect to receive from this particular investment, if you will. So again, working our way back, maybe we can find out, what if we wanted to get let's put these numbers down here. 15% is our standard deviation. The expected return is 12%. What if we wanted a utility of 0.08? Whoop, let's change the number so it's a lot different. 0.15. Our risk aversion would have to be negative. Of course, that would mean we were gambling. So let's not think about that. So let's think there's a 0.04. If it's 0.04, we would have to have a risk aversion of 7.11. And obviously you know that that is that level of risk aversion is not what we think individuals currently or should have. So again, you can solve for risk aversion. You can also solve for utility. Now over here we have a risk-free asset. So let's make it 3.75 just so I can change the numbers, right? And risk aversion is the same over here, right? So if you purchase this asset, it would have a utility of 0.038. And what you'll recognize maybe is that this really, a risk-free asset, its utility is exactly equal to its expected returns. All right, so how can we use this then? Well, we have two assets to put into a portfolio. So in this case, let's go down here and transfer these numbers down here. So the risk-free or the risky assets return was 12%. The risky asset standard deviation was 15. The return on the T-bill, 3.75. So if we plug those numbers in for the portfolio, what do we want this portfolio to look like? Let's say we want to put 20% of our money in a treasury bill, which would mean 80% is in the risky portfolio. So what does that do for us? This portfolio will earn on average 10.35%. Standard deviation of that portfolio will be 12. The return on the T-bill, obviously we had that as 3.75%. And the risk-reward ratio of this is 0.55. So we obviously are earning something greater than the risk-free rate of return. But if we were to purchase this portfolio, what would be our utility? Well, we need to transfer these numbers over here into this portfolio's database or data cells. So the portfolio standard deviation is 12. The expected returns are 10.35. And again, we're using this risk aversion up above 2.75. So this utility of this portfolio is 0.084. So again, we can look at a portfolio. We can create a portfolio with some known statistics of the assets in the portfolio. And in this case, we're really in a very simple foundation. where we're only looking at two assets, the risk-free asset and the risky asset. If we wanted to be more complicated, what we would have to do is calculate the standard deviation and the expected returns for a portfolio. Well, maybe we can do that. So let's, again, I'm going to skip over here a little bit, and I want to find some data. So I'm going to go up here in my thing. I know that I have some data in one of these projects. So we'll click on here. Of course, we're going to have to wait for it to load up. So we're going to click on open this database, and let's gather some numbers that we can get that are real numbers. So we'll come back here. Here's where we know that this data is. And let's just pick one of these stocks, right? So we have a stock down here. Here's the data. Let's pick Disney. Disney's mean is 0.57%. Right, it's 0.571%. Its standard deviation is 5.157%. And if we go over here and find the T-bills are at on average 0.054%. So now we can go back to our spreadsheet and let's put these numbers into our spreadsheet. The standard deviation of the risky asset is 5.157. The expected returns is 0.00571. So that should give us 0.571%. Let's keep our risk aversion. Let's make risk aversion different. Make it 3. Over here, our standard deviation, our return here is 0.0054. Actually, I need one more. 0.054%. Risk aversion is 3%. Now we come down below here. Let's, again, think about our portfolio, right? So if I just buy the risky asset, I have utility of 0.002. And of course, so the utility here is going to be 0.001. If I go down below, let's transfer some of this information down here. The risky asset return, 0.0057, right? And this is 5.16. And this is 0.00054. Okay, so here's our return. Let's just make it an equally weighted portfolio, 50% in each. So now our portfolio return is going to be 0.31%. Standard deviation is 2.58. Again, risk-reward ratio, we're still doing well. We're above 0, so we're making money above the risk-free rate. Again, let's transfer these numbers down here. The standard deviation is 0.0258, and the expected returns is 0.0031. There we go. Our risk aversion has come back up. Remember, we changed that to 3. And what we will find out is the utility on this portfolio, again, it's 0.002. So we're going to get a risky portfolio return of, the return's 0.31, which again is a combination of these two. The risk, 2.58, right, is obviously less than the standard deviation. So we know we're getting somewhere in the middle, the average risk. We're making some money, and the actual benefit on this is 0.002. So if this one and this one, again, I'm assuming they're equal. Let me, one of the ways, obviously, you can check this is expand it, see what the decimals actually tell us here. So what you see here, again, I'm glad I did this. See that what? The utility of the risky asset is 0.001, and the portfolio actually has a utility of 0.002. So by buying this portfolio instead of the risky thing, even though the risky thing has more return, we actually would be getting more benefit. How do we get more benefit? The idea of benefit is it's the combination of the returns of the investment, the riskiness of the investment, and in the end, the risk aversion of the investor. Every person, if you put in here, if we said no, this person is very low on the risk aversion scale. They don't care about risk at all. If we make that a 2, then again, obviously the number, it gets a little bit bigger. If they're very scared about risk, they have a risk aversion of 5, then it's going to be a much lower utility number. So again, we can play with the concept of utility and benefit with this worksheet.